We all hit a time where it starts to cost us more to continue working than it does to retire. But how do we know when that time might be? Well, in today's video, I'm going to share with you 5 reasons it might be time for you to retire. The first reason it might be time for you to retire is that time is the only non-renewable currency. We can always make more money. Regardless of how difficult that might be, it's always possible to do so. Time is the only thing we can't get more of. It's the only thing we can't get back, and it's the only thing that we have no idea how much longer we have. I've worked with a number of people who they prepared, and they retired and they were financially set to do so, probably even more than financially set to do so. And as sad as it is to say, within a couple of years, and even in some instances a couple of months, they fell ill and ultimately passed away. Now, none of these individuals in their final days were worrying about how big their portfolio was. None of them were worrying about how much they did in Roth conversions. None of them were worrying about whether they optimized their Social Security or not. All they were worried about was how much longer do I have? The thing about time is we don't fully appreciate it until it's going to be pulled away from us. And what everyone starts to find is that the older they get, the less valuable money becomes and the more valuable time becomes. Now, if you're watching this and saying, well, James, that's great, but I'm in my early 60s and I've got 30 years at least, most likely. Well, that may be true, but also consider the fact that not all time is created equal. My guess is the next 5 to 10 years, you're gonna have a lot more health, energy, vitality than you will in the final 5 to 10 years. So it's not just the length of time that you have, but it's the quality of time that you have. So as you're making financial decisions, the temptation is to make them only from a financial perspective. How big is my portfolio? How much income can I create? What will my tax situation be in retirement? And granted, those are all incredibly important things to do. But you cannot neglect to take into account how important time is as well. How much time do you have to actually do what you want to do? And in some cases, after taking an honest assessment of where you are, you might find that time is becoming increasingly more important, even more so than money. So you do have to strike a balance. You do have to make sure that you're in a financial position to support the lifestyle you want to have when you do retire. But assuming you're there, start taking a very close look at time and what do you want to do with your remaining time, knowing that none of us knows how much longer we have. The second reason it might be time to retire is to improve your health. Now this kind of ties into the first point I made, where if you have 30 years, even if we knew for certain we did, those 30 years aren't all created equal. Let's go back to the example I just used. Let's assume you're 62 years old and you somehow had a crystal ball and you knew that you were going to live until age 92. Well, you might say it's not so bad to continue working a few more years, even if you're financially squared away, until you start to understand the importance of your health. Again, how much more healthy are you likely going to be in your 60s, your early and mid 60s, than you're going to be maybe in your 80s and 90s? So not all years are created equal. It's not just about how much lifespan do we have left, it's also about how much health span do we have left. Now, not only that, but in many cases, the longer we continue working, the worse off our health becomes. Because of the stress, because of the demands, because oftentimes it's easy not to prioritize health when we're working busy work weeks, our health begins to deteriorate even faster the longer that we continue working, whereas those of us who are able to step away from that, step out of the hamster wheel, are maybe able to prioritize health to a greater extent than you otherwise would have been. So just keep that in mind, that it's not uncommon that by the time you actually retire, after 30, 40 plus years of working and grinding and raising a family and all the responsibilities on you, it's not uncommon to have health issues, whether those be things like high blood pressure, things like heart disease, things like anxiety, things like depression, diseases like this that stress can play a very big part in bringing upon us. So retiring when it's time to retire can not only help us enjoy the time that we have left, but it can make the quality of that time all the more enjoyable because we can prioritize health to a degree that maybe we couldn't have, or at least was much harder to do while we're still working. The third time it might be time to retire now is that you can finally spend more time with friends and with family. The quality of our lives is largely dependent upon the quality of our relationships. Now let's think about that for a second. As we just mentioned, what happens when you're spending 40, 50 plus hours a week working, another few hours a week commuting, another few hours per week running errands, doing chores, doing the things you need to do to keep up with the daily pace of life? How much time do you truly have for friends and for family? Sure, you probably see coworkers, sure, you probably see friends and see family, but what's the quality of that time like when you're constantly worried about the deadlines you have to hit, when you're constantly worried about that project you're behind on or those things that you need to get done? When you are retired, assuming you're in a financial position to do so, you can fully give not just your time, but your undivided attention and focus and energy to those relationships so those relationships can flourish in a way that maybe they never did before. So while work has many tremendous benefits, One of the main benefits of retirement is you have your time back and you can be incredibly intentional about how you spend that. And one of the ways that you're gonna have the most amount of joy spending that time is connecting with people that matter most to you, connecting with friends, connecting with family, connecting with those around you, because that's gonna be one of the largest indicators of your happiness in retirement. The fourth reason it might be time to retire today is your best years are limited. Now, this is kind of a tag on to another point that I previously made, but let's go back to assuming you have 30 years. You're 62 today and you know you're gonna live to 92. And so you say, okay, well, if I'm gonna live until 92, it makes sense for me to maximize my Social Security benefit by waiting until 70. So if Social Security doesn't kick in until age 70, I'm gonna work until age 70 because I still have 22 years to live, assuming you knew for certain that was going to be the case. Well, that might be the right thing to do, but you have to ask yourself, yes, you have those 30 years, but 62 to 65 are probably the healthiest. And 65 to 70 are probably the next healthiest. 70 to 75, you're still doing things, but maybe not to the same extent, maybe not with the same zeal or same passion that you could have earlier in life. So as you understand this, that it's not just a binary decision of how much longer do I have and should I continue working or not, but there's nuance to this. What's the quality of life that I have left? And not just what's the quality of life, all things being equal, but how can that quality of life improve if I make the decision to step off the hamster wheel today? Assuming you're financially squared away to do so, and assuming that you can prioritize things that will lead to better health, and not just physical health, but relational health, mental health, all the things that go in to creating the happiest retirement possible. And then number 5, the fifth reason it might be time for you to retire today is you're financially ready. Now this may seem obvious, but I can't tell you how many people I've spoken with that they're financially squared away. We run the analysis, we run the plan, we say, yes, you can retire yesterday if you wanted to, and not just could you do so, but you could spend more than you even think you need to or want to. Now you would think that many of these people say, oh great, we're gonna automatically do so. But there's a challenge for a lot of people. There's a challenge of you spend your whole life working towards this point, saving to your 401k, paying down the mortgage, paying into Social Security, and then you get there, and it's kind of an odd feeling to say, I'm gonna step away from this thing I've been doing for 40 plus years and into this unknown of retirement. Now for some people it's pretty easy, but for a lot of people it's challenging. And so what they do is, because that's something new, because it's something scary, because it's something challenging, it's almost easier sometimes, even if they don't enjoy work, to keep working. Because it's the thing that they know. And even if they don't love it, it's less scary than that unknown of what am I gonna do with myself when I'm retired? What am I gonna do with my time? How do I know I'm gonna be happy? Sometimes it's easier to continue distracting ourselves with things like work, as opposed to removing that distraction and finding out who it really is that we want to become, what it really is that we want to do. Now, I wanna be very clear here. I'm not saying work is bad. I love what I get to do for work. I know a lot of you love what you get to do for work. And if that's the case, there's no reason to stop doing it unless it's pulling you away from other things that are even more important. Who I'm specifically talking to is those of you who don't love what you're doing for work. You know it's taking a toll on your health, on your friendships, on your relationships, on your family time, but it's hard for you to step away. Even when you know you're financially squared away, it's time for you to step away. But you have to think ahead sometimes. Think through, what would your future self wish you had done? Think of yourself at age 90, knowing that maybe you're coming up on your final days. Are you gonna look back and tell yourself, yeah, I was really happy. I continued working that job I didn't enjoy, even when it didn't provide a financial benefit that was necessary to my well-being? Or are you gonna be more glad that you made the decision to step into something scary, something unknown, that thing being retirement, and seeing what it had to offer and making the effort to be intentional about what you wanted that season to look like? My guess is, if you're honest with yourself, your future self would be wanting you to make that leap, wanting you to take that step, acknowledging that it's scary, but doing so anyways. So as we start to wrap this up, I'm not saying that work is bad. Work can be wonderful for a variety of different reasons. What I am saying though, is if work's not representing that for you, if work's not a creative outlet or something that you love doing or something that's incredibly impactful to those around you, well, if any of these reasons resonate with you, it may be costing you more to continue working than it actually is to discontinue that. Now, the last of these reasons is probably the most important. You don't want to retire if you're not able to actually do so financially. And the final reason was, if you're in a financial position to retire, then it may be time to do so. Well, that begs the obvious question of, James, how do I know if I'm in a position to be able to retire? Well, that's why I made this video right here, which I'm including a link to. This video is going to walk you through a framework that says, based upon your portfolio value, based upon your overall financial situation, what's a simple way to tell if I can retire right now? Take a look at that video to see if that resonates, to see if that connects, so that you can maybe see if you're in a financial position to retire, so then you can then make the personal decision of, is it time to retire right now? Once again, I'm James Knoll, founder of Root Financial, and if you're interested in seeing how we help our clients at Root Financial get the most out of life with their money, be sure to visit us at www.rootfinancialpartners.com.